Wow. Sorry about that.
It's fine. Oh, I could probably turn my video on. There we go.
So it wasn't his second trip to Jerusalem. It was his second trip to Antioch. I mean,
no, we're talking about Jerusalem,
okay.
right? I mean, I missed part of it because it cut out.
Well, the scripture Melinda wrote, or Shelby read, it was now in these days prophets came down from Jerusalem to Antioch.
In 12:25, it says, and Barnabas and Saul returned from Jerusalem when they had completed their service, bringing with them John, whose other name was Mark.
12:25, that's what it says.
Yeah.
What was the 11 one? 11:27.
11:27 says, now in these days, prophets came down from Jerusalem to Antioch.
This is not right. Oh.
What did your PowerPoint say?
That's what it said. And I know the famine is an important thing.
Yeah, there would be a great famine over all the world. So the disciples determined, everyone according to his ability, send relief to the brothers
living in Judea.
Yeah.
So this is about the relief.
And they did so, sending it to the elders by the hand of Barnabas and Saul.
Right.
So Saul,
I think that they go together. Because this, and then what was the other one? 12:25.
returned from Jerusalem. Barnabas and Saul returned from Jerusalem when they had completed their service, bringing with them. So is that after they went to Judea to take this stuff or whatever? After
Yeah.
the famine?
During the famine.
Or during the famine or whatever?
So the thing is, I think the reason that there's like a cut in it is because we go from 11, the end of 11, when they're talking about the famine and they're talking about these people coming and saying, here's some money or some food or whatever. Now you need to deliver these to the people. Okay. And then in the 12:1, it changes subjects from Paul and Barnabas to James being killed by Herod, and then Peter being in prison. So we have a subject change, or you know what I mean? So that's why it skips all the way down and talks all the way about that until the end. Then it talks about the death of Herod. And then at the very end it says, and then it just continues that. Okay, now Barnabas, back to Barnabas and Paul. They're returning from Jerusalem. They completed their service and they're returning. Right? Yeah. Do you understand that they connect to each other? But there's just that that little kind of detour at the beginning of 12. If that makes sense. Okay. So whatever. Okay, so back to my share screen. I don't know what happened to Amy. She said she was trying to get in and it showed that she was, but then she never showed up. Okay, so back to this. We won't be too much longer, sorry. Okay, so we just mentioned in 11:27-ish, the famine during Claudius's reign, which was recorded 46 AD. And then the other, so that's one possible place, one possible of the second trips. Okay, there's a third trip that we know of that is in detail that Paul and Barnabas go back to Jerusalem.
Okay, this might be, you maybe already said this. We're trying to figure out right now when he wrote this specific letter to the Galatians. Is that what we're trying to figure out right now?
Yes.
Okay, that's all. Sorry. There's just been a lot of information. So I'm just like trying to figure out what we're trying to do here.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're totally fine.
We're just seeing how this is like a step that we do in studying when I was in school, and is figuring out when this was written to these people, like what were they going through, what time, because it is somewhat important, because if it's written in the 50s AD, 20 years after Jesus, as opposed to when John wrote Revelation, which was almost, towards the end of the century.
Yeah.
That's a big, it's a difference. Obviously, if you think about all our culture today, 50 years ago is a lot different than things are today. So it changes, like maybe what they were going through, or if the gospel was, just given to them, or it's been a while and they've reverted back to the, which I think you'll see in other letters. So yeah, so that's what we're trying to figure out. So we've talked about Acts 15 multiple times during Ephesians, when we talked about the circumcision party. It's the Jerusalem Council, where they all meet together in Jerusalem, and they talk about they discuss okay, can we eat, can the Gentiles eat whatever they want? Can we eat whatever we want? Do the Gentiles need to be circumcised after they become saved? Do they have to be fully Jewish to become a Christian? And they unanimously decide, no, they don't. They have some debate about it. Then James stands up and says, hey, this is James, the brother of Jesus, obviously, because the other James, we already found out in Acts 12, he is beheaded. So not the disciple James, the brother of Jesus. And he stands up and says, hey, this is what we should do. We should not enforce this anymore. We should stop that. So they come to a unanimous decision. No more of the law being enforced on the Gentiles in order to become saved. And then they send out a letter with Paul and Barnabas to go distribute to these churches in other cities to say, okay, whoever's saying these things, nope, this is not it. Okay, so what we just talked about in Acts 11 through 12, and then Acts 15, those are the possible two trips. Those are two of the possible trips that Paul is talking about here in his second trip. But if you look at, let me switch slides. If you look at what happens in Galatians, or what he talks about in Galatians with his argument with Peter, it's very different than what we see in Acts 15. So in Acts 15, they come to a unanimous decision saying, no, we're not gonna do the whole forcing the law on the Gentiles. But in the letter in chapter 2 of Galatians, when Paul is talking about his argument with Peter, it's very different. People come from James and say, you can't be eaten with sinners, or you can't be eaten with Gentiles, you can't do this. And Peter freaks out and gets scared, and he's like, okay, I'm not gonna do it. And then all of his friends, all of his followers, they like, me neither. And so they start reverting back to their old ways of legalism. And so because they were in fear of the circumcision party. So, and then Paul confronts Peter on this, and that's not what we see in Acts 15. Does that make sense? Yeah. We don't see that in Acts 15. So it seems like it has to be the previous one that he's talking about. And another thing that tells us about that is in Galatians 2:10, Paul says, he says, only they asked us to remember the poor, the very thing I was eager to do. And we read about that in 11:27 when Shelby read that they had asked him to take this stuff to the poor and to the people that were experiencing the famine. So it seems like that's when they did that, or that's the trip they're talking about. So here's the conclusion. I know it's been a lot of information and you may not care about it, but I think it's pretty cool to put it all together. So the conversion, according to what has been recorded as far as dates go, his conversion, like we talked about, was between 33 and 34 AD. 3 years later, which was his first trip that he mentioned in Galatians 1:18. That would have been between 36 to 37 AD. And that's also in Acts 26. And then 14 years later, It could be 47 to 48 AD. If we're talking about 14 years from the conversion or 14 years from the date, the first trip, not sure. Ooh, I'm really sorry. That 47, 48, no more than 51 AD. And it also depends on which trip you think Paul's referring to as well, whether it be the one in Acts 11 and 12 or the one in Acts 15, which I think that based on just the way that he talks about that with Peter, it would be the former one, but we're not really sure. And maybe he had another trip that just wasn't recorded in Acts. I don't know. No one knows. But I just think that it's really cool to kind of go through all that stuff and see how it fits together through Acts and Galatians and how they compare and how we can use them together. And I really encourage you, as you continue to study the Bible, which I hope that you do, even if we don't again, that you study the book of Acts and utilize it when you're reading through the letters of the New Testament. Acts is it's like the backbone of the New Testament, as far as, I think I mentioned that before, as far as Paul's letters go. And I think it really helps you to place the people that he's talking to as he writes to the different churches. Yeah, so
Amy, is Amy there, or I see her purse?
Is she on?
Hello, Amy. I don't know.
Oh, I never saw her come on. I don't know.
Hi, Monroe.
So yeah, that's really all that I have today. Sorry, it was kind of like a recap of last week and we didn't dig into the actual text, but I just thought it was important to kind of understand just the different connections between Galatians and Acts and the dates, and then also understanding a little bit more of the historical background. Anybody find that helpful or interesting? Good. So next time, I'm just going to say next time, because who knows when it's going to be, probably next Tuesday, that we will go, we'll start digging into the text, starting at chapter 1, and we'll just see how far we get. Any questions, thoughts?
Oh, there's Amy. We're just finished. We're just done.
Well, I've been on for a couple minutes, but then the dog was barking and I had to leave to go take care of him. And sorry. Shoot, I tried.
It's fine. It's
You can watch
recorded.
the recorded version.
Okay, good. I'll have to, yeah.
So yeah,
You'll have to send her the PowerPoint so she can follow along.
yeah.
I guess she can see it. I guess she can see it in the recorded version.
Yeah, but I might just send it to everyone, and I wanted to send that map and the other thing that I showed you last time, which was like it looks like this. It's like a visual breakdown of Galatians. This thing. I'm gonna send you both of those. So yeah. Anyway, we just talked about historical background today, and then some details in like when the book was written and how that connects Galatians and Acts, and talked about Paul's trips to Galatia in Acts, like that we see. So yep. Anyway, so for next week, I would say there's nothing really to do. Just, I mean, if you haven't done much of your color code, I would suggest doing that. But and if you have any questions, just let me know. But next week we will start digging into chapter 1 as far as going through and getting interpretations and meaning and application out or done, or yeah, working through it. So
Your
yeah.
place is cute. I can see your place. Very cute.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
I like it.
yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. We'll
She
get
has
to see it
kind of a
when we're
mean
there. then.
she has kind of a mean landlord. You got to watch out for her.
I've heard that.
Uh-huh.
Poor thing.